Hey, you all, this is Kevin here. Good seeing you. Welcome to another live stream where we're going to be talking about one of the things that has been for our conversations on this channel. I want to say, please forgive me if things look like they are glitching. I have a lot of stuff that I have put on my slow computer. So please forgive me if it does seem like it is having a little bit of issues. But I'm going to see if maybe if I can try to do things one at a time. If probably won't look so bad. I cannot check the comments while I am going live. So, and please forgive me if I'm rubbing my nose, the usual stuff. But anyway, let's continue on. Guys, remember, if you like this video, if you like the stuff that we're doing over here, make sure that you hit the like button. If you are a new subscriber here, make sure that you check out the subscribe button and click notification bell so that way you are alerted every time there's a new video. So first of all, let me make sure that my sound is good. Okay, so it should be doing okay for now. Please bear with me. I know that things are kind of crazy with the graininess of the picture, but things will get better. I promise you all, and things will get better. I promise. Anyway, let's go on into discussing the immigration, the CBP One App. We're also going to be talking about Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, as well as Kamala's stance on immigration and on ICE. So let me see, because I am probably going to have to change up some stuff real quick, y'all. Give me just 1 minute. I'm going to try to reduce how much my stuff is loading. If you're here, let me know if you are enjoying the content so far. I'm also having some signal issues, but let's go on. The first thing I'm going to open up with is Title 42, which is a policy, a border policy that Trump put into office in 2020, March 2020. And in this particular border policy, there are some restrictions. There are heavy restrictions that are towards the migrants for when they were coming over during the COVID. Can everybody hear me well? Can anybody hear me well? Hopefully I won't have to do things with my router. I have no idea what's going on. It's very unstable. Can everybody hear me well? Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if there's any feedback. Give me just one moment. I'm going to see if I try to fix up something really quickly regarding this. Closer to it. Give me just 1 second, guys. Chances are you may not see me, but I gotta move a little closer. For some reason, my Wi-Fi signal is very weak. It should be fine. Okay, right up to it. All right. Get my go. All right. Is it better? Can you guys able to hear me a little bit more? I don't know why it's so weak. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with this, shall we? So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is, like I we're going to talk about Title 42. So let's start. Start sharing the screen. All right, so this is the thing that we're going to be talking about right here is that what the immigration rule was. This article was done back in May. It's going to be explaining some details about what 42 is because this has a lot to do with why there's policies regarding, the Biden administration and immigration in the first place. So you're going to see this mentioned a lot as we start getting deeper into these topics about immigration. So without further ado, let me move myself out. Full screen. What's going on? What's going on? There we go. Wow. Y'all, please forgive me. I'm having some really technical issues right here. I don't know what's going on. All right. So Title 42, what is the immigration rule? Why was it why had it ended? So BBC News, and it reads the following. After more than 3 years, a rule that had allowed for rapid expulsion for illegal immigrants has ended. The end of the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about an end to the immigration policies known as Title 42, and the U.S. will now return to its pre-pandemic Title 8 law that governs asylum and deportations. Tens of thousands of migrants have surged to the U.S. border, and U.S. Joe Biden acknowledged that the change on May 11th would mean that it's going to be chaotic for a while. All right, so what exactly is Title 42? Title 42 is a law that dates back to 1944, known as the Public Health Act, which grants U.S. authorities emergency powers to prevent the spread of diseases. In March 2020, the Trump administration invoked the statute, citing that the need to stop the spread of COVID-19 across its borders. When Title 42 was in place, U.S. authorities were able to swiftly remove migrants crossing the U.S. border from Mexico, including asylum seekers, using the pandemic as justification. Some 2.8 million people were expelled while Title 42 was in place, according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So that's gonna be mentioned too regarding the whole thing with the immigration because they have a role in immigration. So why is it ending? After taking office in January 2021, Mr. Biden and his administration kept the policy in place and continued to defend it as a public health measure for more than a year. Citing a diminished public health risk in April 2022, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, which oversees U.S. health policies, signaled it would end the policy. Republican-led states are trying to find ways to keep the policy in place. A proposed Senate bill backed by Arizona Independent Kirsten Sinema and North Carolina Republican Tom Tillis would allow for rapid expulsion in a manner similar to Title 42, but without the public health justification. What's the impact on the situation on the border? The U.S. officials have processed more than 10,000 arrivals at the border each day this week, thought to be the highest levels ever, and up from about 5,000 in March in this year. Border facilities on Wednesday were holding some 28,000 migrants, far beyond their capacity, source told Reuters news agency. To cope with the influx, the Department of Homeland Security has stationed 24,000 more law enforcement officers and deployed 1,500 active duty troops at the border. Meanwhile, Mexico is also sending troops to its border in Central America to control the expected increase in migrants attempting to reach the border. So then it goes to Title 8, the decades-old pre-pandemic law that governs how migrants are deported. It will now again, for the primary legal basis for U.S. immigration policy. Compared to Title 42, Title 8 allows migrants to request asylum and be screened for credible fear of returning to their countries. Those deemed eligible are processed for release and must attend a court immigration, while those who are not are deported. Migrants crossing illegally are rapidly removed and are then subject to 5 or 10-year bans if caught re-entering the U.S. illegally caught re-entering the U.S. illegally. Under Title 42, there were no such consequence. So they were just really just getting people out. They were just making sure that people were just getting out from the border. So what else is the Biden administration doing is introduce new rules this week that would deny asylum to almost all migrants who cross illegally. The strict measure would largely ban migrants from applying for asylum in the United States if they had traveled through other countries on their way to the U.S.-Mexico border or failed to first apply online. This is going to lead to CBP One App. Illegal crossers will be deported and barred from entering the United States for at least 5 years and be presumably ineligible for asylum, according to CBP. But the new rules are likely to face legal challenges from immigrant advocacy groups. The Biden administration plans to open new migrant policy centers in Colombia and Guatemala in a bid to help reduce undocumented immigration. Mexico has agreed to continue to accept 30,000 migrants per month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, as long as they come by air. We're going to get more into that too. The U.S., for its part, has agreed to take up to 100,000 people from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador who have family in the U.S. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. All right. So this actually helps to lead into why it has been such a controversial topic in discussing things when it comes to immigration policies, making sure that things are, done not only just in a legal manner, but in a responsible manner overall. So this is where we kind of get all this to go into the next portion, which is dealing with the involvement, going further into it with their and the things that they have been doing to further progress the migrant issue, or the migrant issue as far as what it means for us. Now, for the migrants themselves, and perhaps for this administration, that may not be so much of an issue, but this is something that has been a particular talking point when it comes to this election. So now the next part that we're going to talk about is migrants can now use mobile apps to request entry at U.S. border. And it reads as the following. This was done in January 12, 2023. So migrants seeking asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border can now use a mobile app to schedule a time to approach a land point of entry. U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed on Thursday a move intended to reduce unauthorized crossings, but which has sparked concerns over privacy and access. The app, called CBP One, is available in English and Spanish and will allow migrants in Central and Northern Mexico who upload biographical information and a photo to request an appointment at one of the 8 ports in Texas, Arizona, and California, according to a fact sheet. Now, all the migrants that are there that are able to come across into Mexico, both in northern and central Mexico, and I think there's even one down in the southern part, these are where they're housing all these different migrants, at least the ones that have not yet been sent over by air. All right, so let's keep this going. The administration had announced it would expand its use of CBP One, giving asylum seekers direct access to enter their information as a pre-screening step before an appointment. Launched in 2020, the app has previously been used to allow people crossing legally at land ports of entry to submit their information beforehand and for non-governmental organizations to request humanitarian entry for certain migrants. U.S. President Joe Biden administration touts the app as a more regulated, potential quicker alternative to crossing the border. The advocates worry asylum seekers will be required to submit personal information without being guaranteed entry, and some may not have access to a cell phone or internet. The app rollout comes out after Biden last week. Keep in mind, this was done back in January, this article. He announced last week his administration would expand COVID-era Title 42 restrictions to quickly expel Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans who crossed the border back to Mexico while opening legal pathways who have U.S. sponsors and enter by air. Biden, a Democrat who seeks re-election in 2024, has been criticized by Republicans for what they consider permissive border policies amid record crossing. Meanwhile, some fellow Democrats, former Biden officials, and immigration advocates have lambasted his decision to expand the COVID border restrictions, which were implemented in 2020 under then President Donald Trump, a Republican. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in April 2020 that they were no longer needed for public health reasons. So the new access to the CBP One App could help reduce crossings, although questions remain, including how many people are aware of it and how it will function. Early on Thursday, 29-year-old Venezuelan migrant Antonio Rodriguez repeatedly logged into the app, which he downloaded several days earlier, waiting for it to begin accepting appointment requests. He was able to register a January 20th appointment at the point of entry in Brownsville, Texas, according to the confirmation email reviewed by Reuters. Rodriguez has been camping in Matamoros, a Mexican border city across from Brownsville, and since late November with over a dozen family members, some of whom have already crossed into the United States. We are signed up. Everyone is happy, he said. Claudia Martinez, a 38-year-old Venezuelan waiting in Tijuana, was unable to access CBP One despite several tries. We're going to make another attempt to access the application later in the day, she said. Tijuana authorities said this week the city would increase internet connectivity in 3 locations and train officials to assist migrants with applications. All right, so we're going to look into some key points in this article that are going to be very important. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the announcements. And again, we're going to go back to discussing Title 42. And then we're going to go into the why immigration advocates lambasted decision, and then the disease control and prevention. So let's go here first. All right, so this is facing pressures over border crossings. Biden steps up migrant expulsions. Right, so again, this was just last year. The United States has expanded Trump's Haitian migrants, Biden said on Thursday in his first major speech on border security. At the same time, the United States will allow 30,000 people from those 3 countries, plus Venezuela, to enter the country by air each month. The two-pronged approach is designed to blunt criticism from Republicans who have attacked Biden as record numbers of migrants cross the U.S.-Mexico border, while also placating Democrats and immigration advocates who say Title 42 restrictions adopted under former President Donald Trump block migrants from exercising their right to apply for asylum. This new process is orderly, it's safe, and it's humane, Biden said in a speech at the White House. He said his message to those would-be migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, or Haiti without a U.S. sponsor is, do not just show up at the border. All right. So this one right here, so it shows that they're actually using, or since they couldn't get rid of it. I think Biden was originally intending to get rid of it, but he couldn't. I don't know if it's because of the situation with the whole thing with the migrants, but he used it as a way to set up the stage for a more orderly way to get migrants into the United States. So in November, the U.S. border official encountered 82,000 migrants from those countries and Venezuela who were attempting to enter without permission at the border with Mexico, according to U.S. government data. The plan is part of a broader effort to deter record numbers of border crossers and address the political and humanitarian challenge of mass migration that has dogged the Democratic Party since he took office in 2021, as well as his predecessors from both parties. The actions alone are not going to fix our entire immigration system, Biden said, but they could help a great deal. National Association of Manufacturers President Jay Timmons welcomed actions, but said that congressional reforms were still needed, especially with the 779,000 open jobs and not enough Americans to fill those vacancies. So you see that there's a key thing about the whole issue with jobs and making sure that there are people who are able to fill those particular jobs. So that's close to 780,000 people there. All right, with the well, not people, the open jobs that there are manufacturers they're wanting migrants to help to fill. So the Democratic lawmakers, including Senator Bob Menendez, have criticized the expansion of these policies, which on Thursday he called a disastrous and inhumane relic of the Trump administration's racist immigration agenda. Republicans have criticized Biden for what they describe as a lax border enforcement and have rejected the president's proposal for immigration reform and related funding in Congress. Biden defended the role immigrants play and asserted a U.S. responsibility to accept persecuted people from around the globe. The U.S. government can use existing resources to deport migrants and process asylum seekers, but U.S. officials said the system will be slow until Congress approves funds for more resources. We don't have enough immigration judges to adjudicate the claims, Biden said. So apparently, there's all these migrants that are coming in, but there's not enough resources for these people, especially as they are pouring in each month through logging in and applying. So there been, I guess at this time, they were getting approval from those funds for more resources. So let's see here. So Biden will visit let's see, should we even read this one here? Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. So we should do this. Biden will visit El Paso, Texas on Sunday. So again, this article was done on January 5th, right? So El Paso, Texas on Saturday, his first trip to the border with Mexico since taking office. So that would be the first time he's ever been at the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, since he was at office at the time. So that was a 2-3-year span. El Paso, Democratic stronghold with a history of welcoming migrants, has struggled in recent months to cope with the tens of thousands of migrants crossing the border from Mexico. Discussions of immigration is expected to be a priority when Biden travels to Mexico City for a summit next Tuesday with Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. In response to Biden's actions, Mexico's government said Washington has responded positively to Mexico's request to expand labor and humanitarian opportunities for migrants in the region. Mexico said the U.S. plan would also expand refugee resettlement policies. The cap at 3,000 people a month offers a significant alternative to irregular migratory flows that can carry significant risk for the safety of migrants and refugees, Mexico's government said in a statement. If the humanitarian access applications are filled for the total of 360,000 people in 2023, it would represent the biggest increase for U.S. labor opportunities for migrants in recent years, it said. Under the plan announced on Thursday, Mexico will accept up to 3,000 expelled migrants per month from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela. The migrants who cannot be expelled to Mexico increasingly will be subjected to a rapid deportation process called expedited removal, senior officials said. Reuters reported last week that the Biden administration planned to implement the new curves of and entry programs. The policy change follows a U.S. Supreme Court ruling in late December that the pandemic-era restrictions, also known as Title 42, must stay in place for what could be months as a legal battle plays out. The Biden administration intends to propose a regulation that would restrict asylum access at the border if migrants do not follow the new processes or they pass through a country en route to the United States without seeking protection there, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said at a news conference. Similar limitations on asylum access during the Trump years drew opposition from advocates and were blocked by federal courts. Mayorkas said that Biden's restrictions would be different because migrants would be able to apply to enter the U.S. through new legal pathways, bringing order and safety to the asylum process. All right. So there's that. If I can go back to the lambasted part. Is it on this one? All right, no, so I'm gonna have to go back. All right, so the next one I'm gonna go to the lambasted his descent right here. All right, so here we go right here. Biden's new plan. And we're going through a bunch of articles and stuff, but all these things, they have their importance. They're all be sharing with you all. So President Joe Biden's move to block migrants at a U.S. border. By the way, this article was done on January 12th. President Joe Biden moved this week to block migrants at the border. Aims to reduce record crossings and shield him from Republican criticism, but is it turned away from his main promise to receive one of the criticism that Joe Biden has been getting about the whole issue with migrants, for those who are advocates of the immigration process that is occurring with the border. It's not seen as the radical change that needs to be done because of the whole thing with the Title 42 policy. So initial backlash from both those immigration and advocates for asylum seekers. The Democratic president on Thursday announced a new two-pronged strategy, that Haitians and migrants at the U.S. border while opening new legal limited pathways into the United States for them. We can't stop people from making a journey, but we can require them to come here in an orderly way under U.S. law, Biden said during a speech at the White House. Some fellow Democrats said that the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party, is not going to be able to pass legislation that would allow migrants to enter the United States. Some fellow Democrats said that the Democratic Party is not going to be able to pass legislation that would allow migrants to enter the United States. former Biden officials and immigration advocates lambasted his decision to expand COVID border restrictions implemented under Republican uh, Republican former President Donald Trump, even after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in April 2020 for health reasons. The to rapidly expel migrants caught at the border back to Mexico without the chance to claim asylum case. Mexico had only been accepting returns of its own citizens and some Central Americans until agreeing recently to accept Venezuelans in October, and now additional nationalities. The Biden administration tried last year to end the Title 42 border restrictions, but U.S. courts and legal challenges are ongoing. While the administration must keep the Title 42 order, it does not make sense to say you oppose to it, but also expand it, said Alida Garcia, a former Biden senior advisor on immigration and the vice president of advocacy for pro-immigration U.S. So no action from Congress. Because remember earlier, Biden was talking about he was seeking Congress approval for funds in terms of resources. So I guess it's going to be making its way back here in this article. To be migrants arriving at the border in the absence of any legislative solution from Congress. The court ruling that left the 42 Biden administration time to experiment with different strategies. Under the Biden's new program, up to 3,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela will be allowed to apply for temporary legal entry to the United States via air if they have U.S. sponsors. Angela Kelly, a former senior counselor for immigration and border at the United States, to see whether the legal pathways can ease the pressures at the border. While Biden has won some accolades from some Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin for the new border restrictions, Republicans show no signs of easing their attacks on his border record, even as their party struggles to select a speaker in the House of Representatives. U.S. Representative Nanette Barragán. Oh, okay, wow. Okay, so I'm going in and going out. Oh, wow. Hold on a second. Can everybody still hear me? Can you hear me now, Kia? I have no idea what's going on with everything that's going on. I hope I don't have to do this. I may have to. Can you hear me now, Kia? Or anybody? Okay. Can you hear me now? I think it's because I am made my way back in. Sorry about that, y'all. Hopefully I may have to end up redoing this. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. But if it's too bad, I'll take my time to listen to it. If it's too bad, I'll just redo it again. But this is all information that we need to know. I may just end up doing some type of summary and then have a further discussion about it. So let's continue. U.S. Representative Nanette Barragán, the Democratic chair of Congress Hispanic Caucus, praised the new legal pathways for migrants in a statement on Friday, but said the lawmakers were disappointed in the expansion of the Title 42 order, which has denied asylum seekers their right to due process for far too long. Eleanor Acer, Refugee Protection Director at Human Rights First, said opening more ways for migrants to legally enter the United States to positive steps, but their restrictions on asylum are right out of Trump's playbook. The Biden administration is saying that they will be making tweaks, Acer said, but it is still at the end of the day an entry and transit ban. So the most vulnerable left out. The humanitarian program for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans builds on a Biden program launched in October that blocked Venezuelans at the border, but now allows 24,000 to apply to apply to enter the United States by air. About 11 500 Venezuelans into under the program that started in October. According to the Mexican government, while the number of Venezuelans caught by the U.S. RV, senior policy advisor at advocacy group Women's Refugees Commission, that the Venezuelan program favored more affluent migrants with the U.S. connections and passports, and didn't address the needs of the most vulnerable people. Legal challenges could arise from both conservatives trying to halt the humanitarian entry program and immigration advocates opposing any proposed changes that limit asylum and speed up deportations. Biden's plan could also fail to deter border crossing. While the number of Venezuelans arriving at the border plunged after they were blocked in October, whether that could happen again with nationalities remaining unclear. Migrants could also turn to riskier routes to avoid detection. In the case of Cubans and Haitians, that can mean dangerous journeys by boat. So as you can see, or at least I hope that you were able to hear, let's put myself back on. As you were able to hear, there has been a lot of challenges with the idea of immigration. And again, please forgive me, Wi-Fi connections is going in and out for some reason. So if I am skipping, please forgive me. We may have to end up redoing this again. I may have to edit some stuff out or whatever. But I wanted to put this up because this is kind of where we start seeing how the evolution of the migrant, what is considered a migrant crisis, to be at the forefront of the election policy. So what we have so far is from the more conservative side, we see people who are kind of against the humanitarian efforts of trying to bring migrants into the country. And then you have immigration advocates who are against the idea of people not being able to seek asylum due to the fact that it is a reflection of Title 42, which was still in place at the time. I don't know if it's still in there, but as it stands now, Title 42 is the main deterrent that has set a lot of things back with immigration policies and immigration efforts being a lot more progressive. And so this is where we're going to start getting into more of why the focal point with Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. And I need you all to pay attention to those 4 nationalities, because I have a feeling they're going to mean something later as we start getting more and more into topics about the migrant issues and what that could possibly mean for the future. Could these people end up being a protected status? I, for one, think that there's a possibility, especially if we start getting more into Kamala Harris's ideas, her more radical and more progressive thoughts about immigration. But let's get more into the actual policy of the humanitarian parole, which is for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and now Venezuelans. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to switch out, and we're going to get into the humanitarian under the Biden parole as part of Biden's new border plan. All right, so this is from the American Immigration Council. This was published on October 31st, 2023, and it's called the Biden Administration Humanitarian Parole Program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. This is the overview of that. So, on January 5th, 2023, the Biden administration announced its intent to provide safe and orderly pathways to the United States for up to 3,000 nationals of Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The new program, formerly known as Process for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, CHNV, allows certain people from these 4 countries who have a sponsor in the United States and who have passed a background check to come to the United States for a period of 2 years to live and work lawfully under a legal mechanism known as humanitarian parole. The creation of this new parole program, however, was coupled with restricted access to asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border for migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Starting in January 2023, the government of Mexico agreed to allow the U.S. to expel up to 30,000 migrants from those countries to Mexico each month, preventing them from requesting asylum under U.S. immigration law. With the expiration of Title 42 order in May 2023, okay, so that's already gone. That's been over a year now. So that's fixed. My bad. With the expiration of Title 42 order in May 2023, the U.S. announced that it would formally deport some migrants from those countries to Mexico instead of to their home countries. Migrants are ineligible for the parole program if they cross without authorization to Panama. Following the most common route to the United States, Mexico, or United States, after the relevant parole program was announced, October 19th, 2022, for Venezuelan nationals, and January 9th, 2023, for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans. As of April 23, Cubans and Haitians are also ineligible if they are interdicted at sea while attempting to cross the Caribbean to the United States without authorization. This carrot and stick approach, parent expanded parole with restricted access to asylum, was first adopted by the Biden administration in October 2022 towards Venezuelans, with 24,000 parole slots initially available each month in exchange for government of Mexico permitting the Department of Homeland Security to expel 24,000 Venezuelans to Mexico monthly. With the expansion of the program to Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans on January 9th, 30,000 monthly slots are available in total across all 4 countries. In the first 7 months of the program, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, also known as USCIS, received 1.5 million applications, enough to fill the monthly CHNV allocation for more than 4 years. In response to overwhelming demand, USCIS began to fill half the monthly slots by randomly selecting pending applications via lottery, while the other half are selected based on the date they were received. So what exactly is the humanitarian parole? The Immigration and Nationality Act grants DHS the discretion to temporarily allow certain non-U.S. citizens to enter or remain in the United States if they apply for admission, but lack any legal basis for admission. Individuals who enter the United States under these conditions are granted parole. Humanitarian parole does not provide any permanent pathway to remain in the United States and can be revoked or not renewed to DHS decide it is no longer warranted or if the beneficiary violates the conditions of the parole. A person in the United States on parole may apply for work authorization during the period of their authorized stay. DHS may grant parole to someone if they are urgent humanitarian or significant public benefit reasons to do so. The INA does not define what constitutes urgent humanitarian or significant public benefit reasons, but USCIS states that an urgent humanitarian reason might include protection against targeted individualized harm. Individuals who are not eligible for admission into the United States, but who can demonstrate an urgent humanitarian reason for being allowed to enter or stay in the country, may be granted humanitarian parole. In creating the CHNV humanitarian parole program, the Biden administration invoked both grounds for parole, arguing that the programs provide a significant public benefit for the United States by reducing unauthorized entries along our southwest border, while also addressing the humanitarian reasons causing people to flee those 4 countries. So who is eligible for the CHNV humanitarian parole program? In order to be considered for the humanitarian parole program, an individual must meet the following criteria. One, it's got to be a national from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, or Venezuela, or is an immediate relative of a national of one of those countries who is applying for the program. Two, got to have a supporter in the United States who has filed a declaration of financial support in the form of I-134A on behalf of the applicant and has been approved by the USCIS. Three, can pay for their own way into a U.S. airport. Four, has been vaccinated for measles, polio, and COVID-19. Five, has passed all biographical and security background checks. Who are not eligible? An individual is ineligible for a humanitarian parole program if they, A, fail to pass national security and public safety vetting or do not merit a favorable excuse of discretion by DHS. B, they have been ordered to be removed from the United States within the past 5 years or are subject to another bar to entry based on a private removal order. C, unlawfully crossed the United States, Mexico, or Panama border after October 19, 2022 for Venezuelans, or January 2023 for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans, or were interdicted at sea after April 27, 2023 for Cubans and Haitians. And D, are considered an unaccompanied child under U.S. law. So do we want to get into all this? I don't think we need to get into all the process of it. Might as well. But if you want to read all that, you can be able to see that on the website. So who can be a supporter of the applicants for the CHNV Humanitarian Parole Program? A supporter for applying for parole in the CHNV Parole Program must be lawfully present in the United States. This includes U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, lawful temporary residents, and conditional permanent residents. And then there's non-immigrants and lawful status, such as temporary workers, international students, diplomats, and temporary visitors for business or pleasure. Asylees, refugees, and parolees, recipients of temporary protected status, and beneficiaries of deterred actions, including deferred action for childhood arrivals and deferred international departures. Okay, so here's the thing here. How does the CHNV Humanitarian Parole Program differ from previous uses of parole under the Biden administration? The Biden administration has used their humanitarian parole to admit both Afghan refugees from the summer of 2021 to October 2022, and Ukrainian refugees under the United for Ukraine program. So you have these people who are refugees here as well, along with the migrants that are coming in from those other 4 countries. However, the CHNV program, like the Venezuelan parole program that preceded it, is significantly different from the previous parole programs used by the Biden administration in ways that have raised concerns with migrants and refugee advocates. To begin with, while there are no explicit maximums on the number of Afghans or Ukrainian parolees, the CHNV program only accepts 30,000 people into the United States per month, a fairly low number given that 7 million migrant Venezuelans alone have already fled from their home country. Furthermore, the Afghan and Ukrainian parole programs were not paired with harsher enforcements towards the other asylum seekers from those countries. However, the Biden administration expelled tens of thousands of asylum seekers from these countries trying to enter into the United States between ports of entry into Mexico. Many of those asylum seekers would not have been eligible for parole under the CHNV program because they lack family or others in the United States who make enough money to sponsor them because they cannot afford airfare or simply because they lack passports. Those asylum seekers were originally simply expelled to Mexico under the Trump-era Title 42 policy. At the end of Title 42, some migrants from these countries are now issued voluntary returns to Mexico. All right? So, as you can all see here, I know that was kind of a lot of information, and it seems like people are leaving now, possibly due to the whole situation with this Wi-Fi. I'm going to see what I can do next time to ensure that we have a stronger Wi-Fi. But in any case, my point is that what we are seeing right here is that we are definitely seeing migrants having legal manners to enter into the country. And while it is definitely more regulated, a lot of that is due to the things that have been put in place from the Title 42. In fact, it's because of the whole thing with Title 42 under Trump that they were able to see and implement more strategies to figure out how to do this in a more orderly way. So it's been, I guess, in some regards, kind of a buffer as the whole process of getting these particular people into the country continue. Now, there are some people who won't be able to get in because of, the whole thing of Title 42 messing up their entry and whatnot. However, there may be ways, there are ways around that. I guess they're going to have voluntary returns to Mexico, and whether they wait around a few more years to try to get back in, we'll have to see how that goes. But I wanted to mention all these things regarding the border policies and the border plans and stuff like that, because as you all know, this is not just simply under the Biden administration. This is under the Biden-Harris administration, and Harris has made very, very clear about her stance on immigration. She has made very, very clear about where she stands as far as her radical viewpoints on pursuing things done for immigrants coming into the country and using humanitarian efforts and humanitarian ways to make sure that these migrants are able to come in here, and saying that nobody should be denied entry in coming into the United States. She's even threatened to defund or to remove ICE because she is seeing them as a deterrent to bring them into the country, to bring these migrants into the country, or to at least severely reform them. So I wanted to talk about her radical stance on immigration, and it's very, very important because we are going to have to really talk about how the things that she has espouses to be kind of these equivalencies for ICE being in control of the border, it has been very, very shocking. So we're going to be going into that. Let's see if I can find it. Actually on my it's actually on my post. If you guys been able to look at my post, you'll be able to see the video that I have tagged with Kamala Harris comparing ICE to the KKK. I'm going to screen. All right, so here we go right here. So ICE and the K. So Senator Harris, KKK. Here we go. Oh, by the way,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to emphasize your point. This is a hearing to determine
all in the fair use.
Who will be the next head of ICE. And so this is about reviewing the perspective, the qualifications, and the experience of the nominee. So that being said, I think, Mr. Vitello, that you would agree. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Vitello.
Vitello.
Thank you.
I think you would agree as a member of law enforcement that law enforcement, generally speaking, and certainly would be the case with ICE officers and agents, that a great deal of your power is discretionary. You have limited resources and you make decisions about what you're going to do, but you exercise a great deal of discretion in terms of how you're going to use the limited resources and how you can prioritize them. And then understanding that, I think you would also agree that one's perspective and their bias they have bias, will influence their exercise of discretion in terms of the power they have and how it will be used and implemented. So I want to return to the question that Senator Peters asked you about the statement you made describing the Democratic Party as liberal-cratic or neo-Klanist, which was, I think the assumption there was that you were comparing it to the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. So you said in response to his question, you're sorry because the words caused offense. So would you not be sorry if no one was offended by your words?
No, it was wrong to do.
Why was it wrong?
Because those are offensive words.
Why are they offensive?
Because they have history in this country, and I honestly did not mean it that way.
But please talk about the history. What is the history that would then make those words wrong?
Well, the Klan was what we would call today a domestic terrorist group.
Why? Why would we call them domestic terrorist group?
Because they tried to use fear and force to change the political environment.
And what was the motivation for the use of fear and force?
It's based on race and ethnicity.
Right. Are you aware of the perception of many about how the power and the discretion at ICE is being used to enforce the laws? And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
Puts ICE in the same category as the KKK. Is that what you're asking me?
No, I'm very specific about what I'm asking. Are you aware of a perception that the way that the discretion?
I see no parallel.
I'm not finished.
I see none.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Are you aware that there's a perception that ICE is administering its power in a way that is causing fear and intimidation, particularly among immigrants and specifically among immigrants coming from Mexico and Central America? Are you aware of that perception?
I do not see a parallel between the power and the authority that ICE has to do its job and the agents and officers who do it professionally and excellently with lots of compassion.
Sir, how can you be the head of an agency and be unaware of how your agency is perceived by certain communities?
There's a lot of perceptions in the media and in the public that are incorrect about the agency.
But the perception exists. Would you agree? Whether or not it's correct. And wouldn't you agree then that if that perception exists, there might need to be some work done to correct the perception?
I do want to advocate for the workforce, the vital public safety mission that they have to protect the homeland. And I think more people need to know how valuable they are to the society. So I agree with you on that.
All right, so you were able to hear that. So I think there's both things that are going on here. So she asked him, are you aware that there is a perception? Now his response is he couldn't see the perception. That's not what she was asking. However, there is a comparison to the idea of fear and terror as if ICE is in any way connected to not connected, but have tactics that are similar to the KKK. Now, this was back about 5 years ago. This was back in 2019 or so-ish. And so at this time, when this got out, there was a lot of controversy that was being done and expressed to show how people were upset that she would even dare to make a comparison between these two entities. The KKK, which has been known to be a terrorist group that not only just caused terror to Americans, but also took a lot of lives, did a lot of lynchings and stuff like that, and to compare that with people who are watching the border legally through ICE. Now they're trying to make this into a racial issue. Could there be some racial issues involved with that? Possibly. But the ideal is to protect the border from people who are not supposed to be just crossing over illegally. So that is that. I also wanted to share with you all another video that I came across in response to this. Now, I was just ever. I was really perturbed by some of the responses that I was seeing um, from commentators. And we're going to watch one. This was again in the same year, it's about 5 years ago, with Kamala Harris. This particular video is about some CNN, again, fair use. But I want to use it to talk about the responses that have been occurred for people who were for what Kamala Harris said and one who was against it. And they were both Black people. So let's go ahead and switch out here. All right.
There's a separate for that.
Are you open to that suggestion, Nigel?
Back at
It's
this,
not about
wait,
abolishing. The last
see it
thing
again.
was what we would call today a domestic terrorist group,
Why? Why would we call them domestic terrorist group?
because they tried to use fear and force to change political environment.
And what was the motivation for the use of fear and
It was
force?
based on race and ethnicity.
Right. Are you aware of the perception of many about how the power and the discretion at ICE is being used to enforce the laws? And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no
Are you aware that there's a
that puts
perception?
ICE in the same category as the KKK.
What say the great debaters Niger Innes and Simone Sanders? Simone Sanders, too far?
You know, I think so. What we didn't play, Chris, was before that the question of the KKK came up because Senator Harris was referring to comments that the president's nominee had made, calling the Democratic Party neo-Zionist, which I'm not sure what that is. And so, without context, yes, I think folks would argue that the KKK to ICE is reckless and irresponsible. But that's not what Senator Harris did. And I heard her saying that's not what she said. She was talking about the perception. And it is a fact that there are many people out there across the country, myself included, that think there is that feel as though ICE currently operates with surgical precision in terms of picking out and hunting down folks in communities across the country based upon the color of their skin.
Well, based upon
Yeah, but see, this is how, when it comes to the idea of the border, now let's keep in mind some things that are very that need to be made known, right? There are some people that fit certain features for when they are being determined as to whether or not they may be legal or illegal. Now, do I think that it's fair to just be picking them out as if they are just like they're the face of it? No. But when you're making a comparison that this group is operating like this in a fashion that is similar to the KKK as far as terror or some type of tactic is concerned, that is a problem. That is not something that should even be brought up to that level of capacity. Now, whether or not she was ignorant about what the KKK did, in that regard, you don't really mention that unless you have proper context of what it is that you're saying. Perception, and try to create the idea of perception, is perception, first of all, can be very subjective. That's not necessarily a legal thing. But the other aspect of that too is, how can you make the perception of something be the same thing as the actual history of something? That is the thing that has been the focal point at that time when this statement came out 5 years ago. So let's continue.
their legal status.
Based upon their legal status. But it also places the color of their skin. I mean, let's not forget Jar Arpaio, who literally would have officers stop folks driving because they looked.
When Joe Arpaio got censured by the courts for exactly that and found in contempt because he refused to stop it. But let's get to you on this, Niger. Is this just a question of context?
Absolutely not. What it is a perversion of history. It is Senator Kamala Harris spitting on the graves of thousands of African Americans that were terrorized by the most powerful political domestic terrorist organization in the history of our country.
How so?
It is her showing how so.
Yeah.
Is she spitting on those graves?
Yes.
By comparing what ICE is doing in upholding the Constitution of the United States and the laws of our land and trying to pursue those who are breaking those laws versus the Klan that was actually trying to burn the Constitution, erode the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of the Constitution, written for Black Americans, so that they can be considered full citizens. The Klan, as an organized arm of the Democratic Party,
All right. Now we've gone. Now this is the bridge.
Oh, now that's the bridge too far, right? So what he is saying right here actually has a lot of context here. But now you see the difference right here. And for those who are in support of the things that Kamala says, like particularly when it comes like the border policies and her radical stance for things, you kind of see like the two opposite dynamics of kind of like where we are in the United States, with where we where we stand as far as Harris's presidency for this year. Like you're having again someone who is using a terroristic reference in Black history, trying to compare that with ICE, and you have people who will find a way to defend that, just from the standpoint of the idea of perception. Perception or not, that was not a great way to talk about this topic. It was not a great way or a good lead into whatever it is you want to talk about with the border or with migrants or immigrants or whatever. All right. So let's continue onward. Let's keep going.
Let's just be
Why is it a bridge too far?
Senator Harris is
What
on
I said that's
record
untrue,
saying,
Simone.
Senator Harris is on record saying that she's talking about the perception. When the nominee sitting in the hearing said you should not equate, she said I'm talking about perception. But to say that she's spitting on the graves of Black people, I just think is just very ridiculous language, frankly.
All right, so
Absolutely not what's happening.
So let's push past the hyperbole and get to the actual policy behind it. Do you believe that whether or not ICE should be abolished, is that a legit question for Democrats to be asking? In your opinion, Simone, is that really something that you guys should be considering?
I think for Democrats that have come out on record that said they want ICE to be abolished, people should be asking those folks about abolishing ICE. But I think an overwhelming number of Democrats have come out and said we need to fix our broken immigration system, which needs to be a bipartisan effort. And when it comes to ICE, perhaps we need to revisit it. And currently, there are many Democrats, myself included, that believe ICE is not currently operating inside its mission. It is not fully funded. It does not have the resources and the real directives and the oversight that it needs to carry out its job properly. Let's be clear, ICE's job is not to enforce the border. That is, there's a separate entity for that.
Are you open to that suggestion, Niger? That it's not about abolishing. The last thing we need is less people keeping the border safe, but in terms of how they do their job, what their mandate is, and how it's executed, is that something you'd be open to reviewing?
I have strong libertarian instincts, and any government entity needs proper oversight, supervision, and direction. But that's not what some of the extremists in the progressive movement are doing. They are demonizing the thousands of decent ICE officers that are trying to enforce our laws, including Senator Harris with her perception comparison of the Klan to ICE. She don't run away from it, Simone. It was disgusting what
I'm
she
not
did.
running it.
And she is.
No, he's not talking about Kamala Harris. He's talking about you. Yes, you are running from that. You're trying to change it up to make it seem as if this is not what she has done. It was a gross misrepresentation of ICE.
I will say it again. Spitting on the memories of those who fought in the Civil War and the Civil Rights Revolution against the Klan that had terrorized Black folk for over 100 years. Disgusting, and Kamala Harris needs to apologize.
Look, Senator Harris is not apologizing for anything. I think that can be true because she's been very clear about what her position is. But let's not start talking about
apologists like you, Simone.
Let's not start talking about that the civil. Oh, did you just call me an apologist?
Yep,
well,
I sure did.
Folks, I think you need a history lesson, sir. But as it comes to ICE right now, I definitely think that there's room to have a conversation about of the lack of oversight that this government entity has, and how they're carrying out their mission. There are real questions and concerns
No, I hear you
that
about
many
that.
folks have
I hear you about
what's
that. And
happening.
Niger even walks that walk with you a little bit about oversight and being clear about it, making sure that there's no violation within a mandate. But, you know, you were pretty quick to say, hey, talk to those people who say they want to get rid of ICE. But I'm saying as a party, you're going to have to figure out where you are on that and who you endorse for positions of power, whether it's congressional leadership or who's going to be on the ballot in 2020. You're going to have to be straight on that position, because I think you guys are looking for a nice beating on that issue if you talk about abolishing ICE.
Well, Chris, look, I think the overwhelming majority of Democrats and even potential people that might want to throw their hat in the ring for president have been clear that it's not just about ICE. This is about our immigration policy as a whole, and we do need oversight. And I think if you ask folks about what changes need to happen, sure, ICE is part of that conversation, but it's a smaller piece than the whole.
Right. Look,
We
I think
literally
one on the bones that you guys put to bed. I mean, I talked about this with Nancy Pelosi. And I got to be honest, Niger, I don't know if you heard the interview, but she got me a little on that. Trump, you let him run the immigration game, you let him run the fear and loathing, and we all saw that it was a ruse. He stopped talking about it right after the election day. The caravan all of a sudden caravanished, as we're all joking about it now, but it's not funny, the demonizing that he was doing. That certainly you weren't in high dudgeon about that the way you are now, but let's stick apples to apples. And she said, I told the candidates not then, you won't beat him on his lies. You won't beat him during the campaign. He's just going to lie. You won't be able to beat him. Now we'll take him on. So I want to see what the Democrats do there. Now let's assess where we are, by the way. Blue wave, Trump says, no, I won 2. You don't make enough about my 2 seats that I won in the Senate. Niger, here's my point. You should have won more. This map was all about you guys. You got Democrats sitting in states that don't even belong in anymore. Tester, I know he's from Montana, but that place isn't voting the way Tester is now, but you lost. Joe Manchin, all about Trump. You lost that race. I think you should have won more. Arizona, that's Flake's seat. You should have won. You lost. Why do you deserve a pat on the back for 2 seats when you should have 5?
I'm not going to spin here. The reality is, even in the seats that we won, that Republicans won, be it Georgia, be it the battle in Florida, extremely tight, way too tight for comfort. And, you know, there's one thing to spin on air and give a particular perception. It's another thing that what's going on behind closed doors. What's going on behind closed doors, I guarantee, is that Republicans and conservatives, those who want to keep this country a constitutional republic and not become some Western European style democratic socialist entity, are very concerned about our electorate and very concerned about our upcoming elections.
Well, look, you know, reality's perception. I'll tell you what, Simone, the way you guys should be seeing it, and what I've heard from your side, I want to hear if you agree, is no, it's not about the fear of becoming a socialist republic. It's about not becoming an autocracy. And that people rejected Trump because they don't like the talk. They don't like the strong man talk. This is America.
Okay, so this actually is something totally different. All right, so I think I'm done with everything here. So here's the bottom line, everybody. And this is the one thing I want us to really start keeping in mind for as we start moving into 2024. You guys have heard her stance about the immigration, her immigration style. You've heard her compare ICE with KKK. And you know she's going to be continuing, if not furtherly progressing, Joe Biden's wave of the migrants that are coming in here legally to be to either stay here as asylees, as they call it, or to be move into being citizens. So I want to let you all know something right now, and especially from what I saw from that last video that we did as far as representation, right? The reality is that even though they're having people that are coming to the country that are able to be here legally as far as migrants are concerned, there's still a matter of space and there's still a matter of resources. I don't know whether or not Joe Biden has been able to really secure the resource that he was looking towards from Congress. But either way it goes, as you start getting more and more people to come into the country, those resources start to become less and less for those who are citizens. There's so much of a priority over the migrants that are coming in, especially those who are from Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuelans, along with the Afghan and Ukrainian refugees that are due to this war that's going on right now, that There seems to be a greater focus on ensuring that they are okay, particularly those who are in the CHNV portion of the migrants, than to ensure that we are actually okay as a people. Even when they talk about the home buyers and stuff like that, first time home buyers and stuff like that, are they also including those migrants? Chances could be that they are, so that way they can have that American dream. Now, you've heard Kamala Harris's stance on her stance on ICE specifically, and her way of using perception to make parallels with the KKK and ICE. And you also see people making, especially the Simone person, making excuses for it, while there are people who are trying to hold her to the fire for that at that time, for the comment that she had made. It's amazing to me how this stuff is here 5 years ago and it's still relevant today, and it's not even being mentioned anymore, because there's so much of a need to focus on Trump and whether or not his ideas are too radical. Even if that is true, with where she stands, especially with Black people being in support of her, particularly Black women, I mean, even seeing a representation of kind of what's been going on within the Black community on CNN. You have the Black female side, the stereotypical Black female side that is in support of Kamala Harris. You now have the stereotypical Black male that's moving towards conservative. You kind of see that dynamic going into that same direction. It's where we are right now. I want you all to be very mindful, because we're going to be talking about Agenda 2030 soon. You could very well be seeing these migrants be a new layer of whatever oppression that you may be going through right now, what we're going through right now, as far as our representation for Black people. We talk about the idea of gatekeeping and stuff like that. But when it comes to things involving the Democratic parties and the policies that are done, with and without our support, with our support, but without actually our voice, we are actually putting ourselves into a position where we keep being at the bottom of everything. And these migrants that are coming up, they're going to be the next thing, because of their legal way of coming into this country. Now, a lot of people are not going to be saying that. A whole lot of people are probably talking about that right now. But you're going to be looking at pretty soon, possibly a migrant bill with these people, due to whatever progressive stance that Kamala Harris has with immigration. It wouldn't surprise me one bit to see how much of a huge role she has played in the process of everything that has been happening with the border already, and what has been happening with the immigration process, as far as getting things in the legal, more orderly fashion. All right. So I think that I am going to end it here. I would have some more, but I think I've already made it long enough already. This is enough to try to give you an idea of what it is that we are dealing with as far as how these migrants are getting here, the legal way that they're able to get here, and the stances that have been done by both Biden and Harris, particularly Harris, and the stances that she had made, and the controversial viewpoints that she's had about ICE, and some people being for or against it, even particularly within our community. For me, somebody who claims to be Black, that y'all made her Black. I don't know why y'all keep making her Black. This woman tells you all that she's Indian American, and she keeps lying about her identity. I don't know why you guys still want to try so hard to make her Black. I know that she's associated with the AKA and stuff like that. But you got to keep in mind too, for Black people, your representation is on the line. Whatever you endorse is what you can't say. You're upset about once it's been on record that this is what you do in fact support. So you are supporting somebody who has put the migrants and immigrants so far on a status that she's even willing to use and violate you through historical references of the KKK to get her point across, or even to get the perception across. Shouldn't even been a thing. And you have people who said that she should not apologize. I would have gone down the comment section, but I just feel like there's no need to really do that. But you have people who are making advocacy for what Kamala Harris did 5 years ago, and people who opposed it back then. And now here we are looking more and more into this migrant crisis being a further development. And I said again, I said before, I said again, I said a thousand times. Not only will this be a thing that is going to cause problems for Black people, it's already causing problems now because a lot of these migrants, they're going into more rural areas. They're going to they're going to sanctuary cities as well as smaller towns and taking up resources there. And Kamala Harris has already supported. She supports sanctuary cities, but she would have to if she's an pro-immigration supporter and whatnot. But you are going to be looking more into how they are going to play a role in replacing you when Agenda 2030 comes into play. Along with other stuff that has been implemented by the Democratic Party. We're going to talk more into that eventually, as well as the whole idea of, eventually I think we're going to get into the idea of work and how people are saying that migrants are willing to work because they are willing to take the jobs that Americans don't want to do. But migrants are actually willing to take the jobs that, when it comes to pay, they'll take that because it's better than anything they have in their own country, right? Like I know, like in some countries, it could take hundreds or thousands of their currency to match up to the dollar, and then you have that going on with manufacturers, trying to get laborers to handle those jobs, and then you also have to think about as things and resources become more scarce, especially as this economy is changing. Remember, we have this the strike coming up with the drivers and the port and the ports. They're going to be closing very soon for the strikes. That could last for months. We have no idea how all of this with the migrants, as well as the ports, along with the stuff that's going on with the war, how that's going to have a very detrimental effect, especially if this whole thing with the supply chain, the interruption of the supply chain, goes into effect like this for months, maybe even half a year, or maybe 4 months. You don't even know. Just a few months alone is going to start putting things into a high inflation stress for our economy, and also in extension us. When it comes to these migrants, though, what's going to be happening to them and for them? You already see they're already getting paid hotels. They're getting ready to be flown by air to, from the border to whatever place that they may be going. We already see that these things are happening already. What's going to end up happening over time, especially if Kamala Harris gets in office, we already see that even when it comes to what has happened with Hurricane Helene, where's Kamala Harris? Where is she doing? Where is she there talking with the citizens? Because from what I see Trump been able to talk with the residents and citizens there. Now, we can argue that this could be for publicity or whatever, but the point is the representation matters. Where is Kamala Harris at this time? Where is Joe Biden? What are the things that they are doing to ensure that they are being supported by their leaders? You know how I feel about that term leader. I think that everyone is representative, provided either by the people, the populace, if you're a democracy, or by the Constitution. If you believe in the Constitutional Republic, everybody else is just simply a representative of those two entities that are supposed to be in power, right? So if you have somebody who is going to ignore certain things that are going on with the economy, certain things that are going on with its people, and even ignore certain things within, like maybe even with the Constitution, which is why they're making certain things federal, you just never know. What is that going to mean for the future of this country, especially with these migrants being in place? Now, I'm not faulting the migrants. I think the migrants are really trying to seek opportunity and trying to seek asylum. I don't blame them for that. But at the same time, we're not just some paradise country, not some paradise land. We are a country, we are a nation, and we have resources. We have a national debt that we have to pay back. And with all this money that's being sent towards all these different things that are occurring, we are really, really stressed. Even when it comes to the whole idea with the ports and stuff, you're not seeing Joe Biden even wanting to intervene at all, which is why these strikes are going to be happening. There's not even a room for negotiations. So when it comes to the immigration crisis or immigration matter, I won't call it a crisis, but to the immigration matter, but if and when Biden leaves and Harris gets in there, how much more stiff-necked is she going to be in regards to that too? These are things you got to keep in mind. And if you're not paying attention to it now, because I do believe that in one way or another, we may see things play out the way she may be president. Are you really paying attention, and are you getting yourself prepared in place for the things that are to come? I did all that reading and all that information stuff because I need you all to be informed about every decision that you need to be making, as far as having foresight for the future. As you can see, they are doing things, trying to make things as legal as they possibly can. You know, they're trying to overcome a lot of stuff, but you got to see where you stand in that. If you're somebody who is already being stressed, especially if you're in a town where there's already a lot of migrants that are being poured in there, you know, they're already being sent into those places, because this thing has been around for quite some time. I think this has now been in place since 2021, so it's been about 3 years. Are you someone that is prepared for a lot of things to go down, especially as this economy is shifting and changing? And with these migrants still being in control, there's already reports about Venezuelan gangs being formed and taking over things in New York City and in Chicago as well. Are you really taking your time to prepare? Are you really, if you're going to vote, because some people don't vote, whatever. But are you going to vote for your best interest, or are you going to vote based on what you hear from the media? Because everything that you hear from the media is not always the best thing. All right. So I will leave you all with that. I do apologize, you all, for the audio and for the network situation. I hope you all don't mind. That this was a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be doing it again. If I do, I may have some type of summary review. But I do want people to be as informed as possible for when it comes to the decisions that you are willing to make, regarding the things that are happening from the strike to the things that are going to be going on with the election period that's going to be happening in November. Who gets elected? Who gets elected as our president? Because what you see now is going to be not only a continuation, but a progress of an intense progress of furtherance if Harris were to get in office. Now, we all worried about Trump and we all worried about Project 2025, and I understand that, but there are things that are unfolding for you right now that you may not even see is the calm before the storm. Please, well, by all means, pay attention, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. I wish you all a wonderful day. I hope you were able to enjoy this conversation, and until next time, catch you guys later. Oh, the next time we talk, again, we're going to be talking about 2030. All right, we're going to be talking about the UN goals, and we're going to also talk about how okay, it's freezing again. We're going to talk about again how the United States is using these things to prepare for Agenda 23 in the United States. And I do believe these migrants are playing a role in that. I think that allowing the strikes to happen, the civil unrest to happen, is playing a role in Agenda 2030. I think all of this is being done, and it may not necessarily be for our benefit, but you need to know and be aware anyway. You got to start having some foresight of what's going on. So I'll catch you guys next time. Later. Bye-bye. Oh, and make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell so that way you're alerted every time there's a new video, and hit the like button. Everybody, whether you're a subscriber or not. Later.